Hi, I'm Candela and I'm here to teach you another DBT skill. Well, most of this is a DBT skill. Today we're going to talk about interpersonal effectiveness. If you recall from a couple of videos ago, I explained that DBT skills include 4 sets of skills, and those are mindfulness, interpersonal effectiveness, emotional regulation, and distress tolerance. So today we're focusing on that interpersonal effectiveness. And within that, I'm going to teach you iMessages and teach you the Dear Man acronym. And these are some communication skills that work when we're having to talk about something that may be a little challenging to talk about. Okay, so I want to start with iMessages, and this is my handy dandy little board that we're going to use. What is an iMessage? Well, I'll just share with you that I learned iMessages from a counselor when I was in my early teen years. I'd gone through a couple of situations, got into a little bit of trouble, and got assigned an out counselor, is what they called it. Her name was Sherry, and she was amazing. And she taught me she taught me a million things, I think. One of the things that she taught me is how we communicate about what's going on can really establish how effective we are at solving a problem. And so I had a bad habit in those days of saying things like, you make me mad, or, and really labeling people as bad people. You're mean, you're hurtful, you're rude, you're etc. I mean, as a teenager, I'm sure you can imagine, I had lots of names that I could call people, and some of them were way too colorful to put on this video today, right? So she taught me to notice what was going on and rearrange the way I talked about it. And the first thing she taught me with that was she called them iMessages. And an iMessage, it's a basic formula for how you talk. And I hope you can read this. So it says, I feel, and there's an emotion word, and then when, and you describe the situation. And one of the things she caught me on that describing the situation is try not to describe the situation as you. So instead of saying like, I feel awful when you're a jerk, to describe the situation as I feel disappointed um, when things don't follow through the way I wanted them to, and that is a different way to describe the situation. So the big challenge, a couple of big challenges within this, is I had to learn how to talk about my feelings rather than saying you made me mad. I had to take ownership and recognize that I was feeling mad. But unless they had a little remote control and had the ability to make my avatar mad, they didn't actually get the power to make me mad. I was choosing mad in response to whatever was going on with me. And that was kind of mind blowing in itself. Also, just recognizing that there are all these emotion words that at that time I was pretty limited. I was variations of mad, and that was kind of it as far as my emotional repertoire of recognizing how many emotions there were. Sometimes, though, when I was mad, I was really feeling disappointed, or I was really feeling hurt, or I was really feeling nervous, anxious, afraid, or I was really feeling something else, and I was calling it mad because in my mindset at that time, I didn't have the emotional vocabulary to recognize that not all things were mad or okay. Like in my head, it's like there were two levels of being. There was mad or being okay, and I didn't kind of know all the other nuances. So, but I want to focus today on the when part. So, when and the describing the situation. So, Miss Sherry did not get me as far along as this particular formula has gotten me. She just gave me that initial seed that said, I feel emotion word when, and then I had to take the ball and run with it. So, the next step was for me to learn, and I learned this in my I don't know, 20s, I think, maybe 30s. So then we're going to move on to the next decade. Very often in that when box of the describing the situation, most of us, many of us, at least myself included, but I see this a lot with my clients and with people in my personal life, my family and friends and in my immediate circle, where we want to describe the situation as if you are the problem. So this is one person is kind of pointing at you and saying you are the problem. I feel upset when you you do all these horrible things that upset me. I feel angry when you do all these horrible things that make me angry, etc. And so just describing the problem as this person, like if I feel overwhelmed when you when you're being lazy and not doing half the chores or something like that. And so then to flip it around, I've got these sheets in between because the light makes the other pictures go through. So I've got these blank sheets in between. But then we can easily flip it around and maybe they want to point at me as being the problem. One example that came to mind was a couple with the dishes was the problem. And so the one spouse would come home and say to the other spouse, I feel angry and overwhelmed when you are a lazy, insert cuss words here, and there's this huge pile of dishes. I don't want to come home from work, a hard day at work, and have to do a mountain of dishes. And the other might say, well, if you weren't such a workaholic, then you could do the dishes. You wouldn't be so tired and the dishes wouldn't be such a big deal. I work too, and I take care of, the kids or whatever other responsibilities might be in the house. And so the squabble was, you're lazy. No, you're a workaholic. No, you do this. Well, you take on everybody else's stuff and don't take care of your family. And so they were both you. And so you could see that back and forth, right? You. And so level up iMessages would be to recognize that we can describe the situation or the problem as if it's not you. It could be just the problem. The problem is that there's a mountain of dishes that need to be washed. Okay, so there are multiple ways to solve that problem. One is this one could do it, I could do it. The other one is you could do it. The other one is we could hire someone else to do it. The other one is we could just buy new dishes every week. The other one is we could just eat out and never have dishes again. I mean, there are lots of ways to solve the problem. Now, some of those other ways might not be feasible for some folks, and that's understandable too. But the point of this lesson is to recognize there are multiple ways to talk about the problem, and we don't have to talk about the problem as if it's you or you. We can talk about the problem as if they're just dishes. These are dishes, and the dishes are the problem. And if we love each other and come together on the same side, and we together are, instead of back and forth at each other, we are looking at the problem. We are standing on the same side, being a team, and looking at the problem and thinking about how might we solve the problem together. That's a huge interpersonal effectiveness level up. I mean, because we are now on the same team, and that's how we that's how we improve our interpersonal effectiveness right there, is just recognizing, hey, we're on the same team and the dishes are the problem. So how do we solve that? And I know I'm using dishes as one example, but you can extrapolate this to a million other examples. I mean, every partnership, whether it's a couple who are in relationship with each other, or even a partnership like a colleague kind of partnership, coworker thing at work, a neighbor thing within your community, as a parent collaborating with the child's teacher is a partnership, even a parent collaborating with their child is a partnership. And so there are lots of ways that we can be on the same team with lots of different interactions with people, and look at describing the situation as if it's like a box on the floor is the phrase I use. If we look at the dishes as if they were a box on the floor, instead of labeling me as a problem or labeling you as a problem, recognizing the problem as like a box on the floor. Can we talk about it like that? So then that was leveled up iMessages. I feel blank. I feel an emotion when there's this problem, and describing that problem or situation as if it's a box on the floor. That is like advanced level iMessages, right? So then I learned a new thing, and again, another level up with iMessages was recognizing that I could also ask for what I wanted. So I could say, I feel overwhelmed when I've had a hard day and there's a mountain of dishes, and I would like to discuss how we might solve that. I would like to take turns washing the dishes. I would like to hire someone to come in and deal with the dishes. I wish we could eat out 3 times a week or 5 times a week or 7 times a week or, whatever. So here in this bottom line it says, and I want, or I would like, or I wish, however you want to phrase that. But essentially you're throwing in a third level to this I feel, when, and I want. You're asking for, let's talk about how to solve the problem. My wish for solving the problem would be this. And ask, if you're in partnership, asking what would their way of solving the problem, their best way of solving the problem look like, and how can we come together and pick a best way that works really well for both of us, or all of us in the case of a family. So that would be leveled up iMessages, like leveled up times 2. If we thought about first level like kindergarten level, the next level would be like elementary school, and the next level would be like maybe college level, or high school at least. All right, so then I learned about DBT Skills, and I learned a Dear Man acronym. Okay, so we're going to go through the Dear Man acronym too, of course. And Dear Man, just a quick run through. I've got it written here along the side, Dear Man. So Dear Man is, D is for describe, E is for emotions, or in the book, the Dear Man is very well explained in the DBT Skills and skills training handouts and worksheets book by Marsha Linehan that I have talked about before. It is on page 125 is where it begins, and there are several pages where it explains what each of the letters stand for and gives some examples of applying the Dear Man skills to difficult situations. Okay, so Dear Man, quick run through. D is for describe, E is for emotions, A is for ask, R is for reinforce, M is for mindfully, A is for appearing confident, and N is for negotiate. So let's take it one by one. And as I take it one by one, I want to go back to this for a second. This describe is the same describe that I just mentioned here. They're just in the different order. So in the describe part of Dear Man, you're describing the situation, and you're still describing the situation with that we're on the same team, and the problem is like a box on the floor. The problem is the problem. The problem isn't you. The problem isn't me. The problem is the problem, and how can we talk about the problem? How can we describe the problem in a way that isn't attacking and isn't feeling like anyone needs to go on defense with it? So describing the problem. And then E, in the book it actually says express opinions and emotions, but I find that it's a lot easier to just remember the E from emotions. And the E from emotions, compare and contrast here, the E from emotions is the same thing as the emotions here. So how are you feeling about the problem? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling frustrated? Are you feeling left out? Are you feeling neglected? Are you feeling unappreciated? Are you feeling, what is it that you're feeling? And just kind of sitting with that for a moment and noticing what's coming up. What are you feeling with regards to the problem? And then in the book it says assert, but I just learned a long time ago that teaching ask works a lot better with most of my clients. So I've just always called this the ask, but if you look in the book it'll say assert. And assert is just a kind of a fancy way of saying to ask with not aggressively and not passively, but ask in that assertive manner. We'll talk about assertiveness on a different day. So I'm just going to leave this as ask. But essentially the ask is the same thing that we talked about here with leveled up iMessages. Asking, say I wish this, or I would like this, or I want this, is very similar to just saying, like, asking for what you want. I don't know how old I was, but I was at least in my late 20s, maybe early 30s, when I figured out that my spouse can't read my mind, that in spite of the fact that he loves me to the moon and back, and would probably give me anything that I would ever want, he doesn't know what I want a lot of the time. And so just being able to put my big girl pants on and say, okay, I'm going to ask for what I want has been a huge level up in our lives. And so just this part, just asking, like letting people know, letting your children or your housemates or your intimate partners or your colleagues or even your boss, letting people know, hey, this is what I really want. Sometimes the answer is no, but sometimes the answer is yes, and you don't actually know until you ask. So asking. So these first three letters, essentially what I want you to get is that those first three letters are the same thing as this leveled up iMessages. This took me, 20 something years to catch on to, and it turns out it's in this book all in one day. So you get to benefit from, the advanced levels of learning. All right, so describe emotions and ask. This R is for reinforce. And reinforce, Marsha Linehan has her PhD, and she uses a lot of behavioral words and a lot of behavioral techniques. And so if you've ever learned about behaviorism, maybe in a psychology 101 class, intro to child development, or some intro class, or even if you've taken a like in teaching or dog training or elephant training, if you do that, there are lots of places where people learn about reinforcement, and you've probably heard a little bit about it before. But the essential essence of reinforcement, I have a lovely dog, and I feel like the easiest way to teach reinforcement is to talk about dog training. So dog training is, if you've ever taught a dog to sit, first you tell them to sit, and then in the case of a puppy, they don't know what you're saying. And so very often we'll like push their little bottoms down, and then they'll sit, and we'll say, good boy, and give them a treat, or good doggy, or good whatever their name is. My dog is Cash, so good Cash, and give them a treat. And after a few episodes of this, and you say sit, they know that they're supposed to put their bottom down without you putting your hand, without you giving them any direction. And then they just sit, and then you go, yay! And you get all excited, and you give them lots of treats, and you're so thrilled that they finally got it. And you keep doing this over a course of a number of days, repeatedly. And after a while, you can just say sit, and they sit. And you say sit, and they sit, and you reinforce them, and you give them that little doggy treat, and they are so happy because if they sit on command, they get a doggy treat. And then good behaviorists will start spacing out the doggy treats. And so now you sit, and I say good boy, but maybe no actual treat. And then I say sit, and you sit, and then I give you a doggy treat. And so you're getting a treat like every other time or every third time or something like that. We can talk more about intermittent reinforcement another day, but that's essentially the essence of what is reinforcement. Reinforcement is like a dog treat to a dog. Now, I'm not trying to tell you to dog treat your family members. That would be ridiculous if you're like, oh, I have this little milk bone for you. Most people would be insulted by that, but there are ways that we can reinforce our family members and our loved ones. And the biggest, most easy one, the most obvious one is just thank you. Like, thank you for taking the time to listen to me. Thank you for being willing to discuss these concerns I'm having. Thank you for just being on the same side with me. And thank you for this great life that we're living. And thank you. I mean, there are lots of ways to say thank you. And reinforcement is a really powerful tool to help them stay in a conversation and to really express your appreciation. And so in behavioral terms, it's reinforcement, but in day-to-day life, it's essentially thank you. It's gratitude and appreciation, and letting them know that you're glad to work with them about this. Now, these top four skills, the dear part of Dear Man, these are what you do. These are actually, you are doing a specific behavior, and the behavior that you're doing is describing. The behavior that you're doing is you're telling people what you're feeling. You're telling people your emotions about the situation and your opinions. You're asking, you're using your words to ask for what you want instead of expecting mind reading. You're reinforcing by saying thank you. These bottom three letters of Dear Man, these are the how you do it. And so how you do it is you have the conversation mindfully. And so within your mindfulness, if you recall from previous videos, mindfulness is using your logic and your heart at the same time to be able to listen to both your head and your heart. Mindfulness is being able to hear their side of the story as well as your side. So being mindful that there are two sides to any given situation. Mindfulness is also staying focused on today we're talking about this one thing. Like in the earlier example, I was using the dishes. So we're not getting to the what abouts, or what about the living room, or what about that you spent too much at the store the other day, or what about that thing that happened with the kids, or what about so instead of getting into all the what abouts, because there are probably about a million what abouts, it's staying mindful that for this moment, can we just stay focused on this one challenge? And then when we get done discussing this one challenge, we can move into the next challenge that's most important to discuss. And certainly I want to discuss and solve all the challenges with you. And also, can we just focus on this one challenge? So staying mindful about this one, we're staying focused on this one thing, not getting sidetracked into the things that happened last year, or even last week, just trying to stay focused on this one thing for today. The A stands for appearing confident, and I really love that she said appearing confident. In earlier things when I learned this, there's a big distinction between actually feeling it and just going in as if you feel it. So in my first video on YouTube, I recognized that I was very nervous about doing the video and also not feeling confident at all, but I'm going to do my best to put my game face on and walk into a negotiation or discussion like, okay, taking deep breaths, and I got this, and I can bravely face it, and we can do it, and we can get through it, and here we are. Okay, so appearing confident. And then N stands for negotiate. So having a sense of, I am willing to negotiate. I'm willing to hear the other side. I'm willing to try to meet. I don't have to have everything all my way. I'm willing to try to meet you, in some place that's the middle. Now, I want to add a caveat to that negotiate, that sometimes negotiating isn't exactly meeting in the middle. An example that I like to use is buying a used car. So let's say I want to buy a used car, and I've done my research, and the car that I want, I think, is worth about $5,000. And so I've got it in my mindset that I want to spend, I think it's fair to spend about $5,000 on this car. Now, certainly I'm willing to spend less on the car. If they're going to give me a deal and give it to me for $4,000 or $3,000, okay, yeah, I'll take that. But I don't want to spend like $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 or some number bigger than that. So I go in and I say, okay, that car on the lot, I'd like to know more about that. And the salesman, after telling me about all the perks and all the lovely things about the car, the salesman maybe tells me that it's, let's say that they're telling me it's like $100,000. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to pay $100,000 for a car that I think is worth about $5,000, right? So I could start with something really crazy low, like, oh, I'll give you $1 for it, and I know this is an extreme example, and in real life, it doesn't exactly work this way, but just kind of work with me here. Just walk through this process with me. So if they start at $100,000, I start at $1, and then they come down to, okay, how about 10,000. So they already moved way, way far. They didn't move to the middle. They moved way, way, way in my direction. Now, if they said they want to come down to 50,000, I might say $2 and still not give them much budging at all. But if they came down to 10,000, I might come up to like 2,000. And now we're sort of getting closer in this stance. And then if they come down to 5,000, I might be like, all right, cool, let's go. Or if they come down from 10 to 8, I might just only go up to 3 because I'm trying to get them to 5,000. Now, at any point in time, I can say, no, thank you. Or at any point in time, they can say, no, thank you. This negotiation really isn't worth this conversation. Because maybe they think they have a $100,000 car for some reason. But I just am using this example to recognize that sometimes the middle is not exactly right in the middle. Sometimes the middle is come a little further over to my side. And sometimes the middle is, for me to go over a little more to their side. Maybe if I was the car salesman and they wanted to pay 5,000 and I was starting at 100,000, obviously in that case, maybe it would be better for me to come a little closer to their number. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. However, walking into the discussion with a mindset of, okay, I want to negotiate. I want this to be a win for me and a win for the person with whom I'm negotiating. I want us all to get something that we want out of this deal, and for us to feel like nobody got taken advantage of and nobody got exploited in any kind of way, but that we were able to come to a solution that felt very good for both of us. Felt like a win-win solutions. All right, so that's my whole spiel on Dear Man and iMessages and lesson number 1 in interpersonal effectiveness. Okay, have a great rest of your week. Please stay safe out there. Wear your mask when you go out. Wash your hands. Take good care of yourself and each other. And remember, I am still rooting for you to be the very best you that you can be. Have a great day. Bye-bye.